I shouldn't have said it out loud. That was my first thought the moment the words left me. She sat across the small kitchen table, her hands curled around a chipped mug of tea, the steam fogging the lenses of her reading glasses. She had pushed them up onto her hair a few minutes ago, forgetting them there, and I hadn't had the nerve to tell her. The overhead light buzzed faintly, the kind of tired hum a bulb makes before it gives up. The whole place was too quiet, and that silence had been pulling things out of me I never meant to show. Her name was Claire. She was 46, and I was 24, sitting in her kitchen like I had every excuse to be there, though I knew better. "You don't have to keep explaining yourself," she said softly, not looking at me. The words should have been kind, but they landed heavy, almost like a warning. I rubbed the back of my neck, talking too fast. "I know, I didn't want you to think She cut me off with a small shake of her head. Her fingers tapped the rim of her mug, once, twice, like she was trying to keep rhythm with her own restraint. There it was again, that distance she carried like armor. And yet, it didn't feel like rejection. It felt like something she was protecting. Her shoulders softened. "You're young. People will assume certain things." "I don't care what people assume." My voice came out firmer than I expected. That made her look up at me. Really look. Her eyes, gray and sharp even in this dull kitchen light, held mine longer than they should have. I forgot the rest of what I wanted to say. My throat went dry. She blinked away first, setting her mug down too carefully. "Don't say things like that," she murmured. "Not to me." And that was when I said it. The thing that made her stiffen, the thing that hung in the air like heat rising from pavement. "I can't stop." The words weren't smooth or clever. They just slipped out, heavy with truth I'd been trying to ignore. She froze. For a second, she almost smiled, but it was the kind of almost smile you give when you're caught off guard, when you're trying to cover something dangerous. Her thumb traced the handle of her mug, her chest rising a little faster than before. "I can't believe you said that," she whispered finally. Not angry, not amused, just unsettled. I leaned forward, elbows on the table, my voice dropping without meaning to. "Believe what you feel instead." The silence that followed was louder than any argument. My heart kicked against my ribs. She didn't move. She didn't tell me to leave. She just sat there, her hands tightening around the mug like it was the only thing anchoring her. Her lips parted, then closed again. Whatever she was about to say, she swallowed it back. I wanted to reach across the table, to brush the loose strand of hair that had fallen against her cheek, to prove that what I felt wasn't some fleeting crush, but I didn't. I stayed where I was, watching the soft tremor in her fingers, the way her eyes couldn't quite meet mine anymore. Then, just as the weight between us became unbearable, the doorbell rang. Claire's head snapped toward the sound, relief and dread flickering across her face all at once. She didn't get up right away. Neither did I. The bell rang again, sharper this time. She finally pushed her chair back, the legs scraping the floor. But before she stood, she looked at me. Really looked, as though she was searching for something in my face she wasn't ready to name. And then she whispered, almost too low to hear, "This can't happen." But her eyes said something else entirely. The doorbell's echo still hung in the air when Claire finally moved. She brushed past me, her sweater sleeve grazing my arm, and even that accidental touch felt like a live wire. Through the frosted glass, a figure blurred in the porch light. She hesitated with her hand on the knob. Then, without opening it, she whispered toward me, "Stay quiet." Her voice carried a strange mix, urgency, but also fear. She cracked the door just enough. A neighbor, someone asking about a package. Her tone was practiced, casual, but her posture was too stiff. When she closed the door again, she leaned against it, exhaling like she'd been holding her breath for hours. "I don't like surprises," she muttered. "Neither do I," I admitted, watching her shoulders sag. Something in me wanted to lighten the mood, but the way her fingers lingered on the doorframe, tight, whitening at the knuckles, told me this was about more than a knock at the door. "Claire," I started, then stopped. Her name alone felt dangerous. She shook her head and walked back toward the table, sinking into the chair like her body suddenly weighed more than it should. "You don't know me well enough to talk like you did." But I did know things. Enough, at least. She was divorced. 2 kids, both older than me. One of them a guy I'd played soccer with back in high school. That was the part neither of us ever said out loud. That was the line we circled but never crossed. "You think I'm blind?" I asked. I've seen the way you hold yourself. Like you're already bracing for the next disappointment. Her eyes snapped to me, sharp, defensive, but then softened. You sound too much like him when you say things like that. Like who? My ex-husband. The words were flat, but her throat worked as she swallowed. He used to notice me. Until he didn't. Until I became invisible in my own house. Her voice cracked, just once, before she steadied it. And suddenly, her silence made sense. The walls. The distance. The way she tried to shrink herself when anyone looked too closely. I'm not him, I said quietly. Her laugh was dry, tired. You're young enough to be my son. That stung, but I didn't look away. I'm not your son. The room went unbearably quiet again, except for the hum of the fridge. She rubbed her temples with both hands, as if trying to massage the thought out of existence. I can't, she whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. I leaned forward, resting my forearms on the table, careful not to touch her, but close enough that the space between us felt charged. Then tell me to leave. She didn't. Her fingers twitched once, like they wanted to reach across the table, but didn't dare. Instead, she looked at me. Really looked. As if weighing the risk against the ache she'd carried for years. And though she never moved, I saw it. The shift in her breathing, the quiet surrender hiding in her silence. We sat there, suspended, until the faint sound of rain began tapping against the window. Neither of us spoke. But in that stillness, in the way her eyes lingered just a second too long, something had already changed. The rain came harder, streaking the kitchen window in restless patterns. Claire hadn't moved from her chair. Neither had I. The silence felt like a thread stretched too tight, ready to snap. Then her phone buzzed on the counter. Once. Twice. Persistent. She flinched. I watched her hesitate before standing to check it. The screen lit up with a name I knew too well. Ethan. Her son. My old teammate. She turned the phone over quickly, face down on the counter, like she could erase it. But the look in her eyes told me what the message meant. Even the walls weren't thick enough to keep this hidden. You should go, she said. The words came out firm, but her hands trembled as she picked up her mug again. Empty now. I will, I said. But not because you're scared of what your son might think. Her jaw tightened. That's exactly why. I pushed back my chair. The legs scraped the floor again, loud in the small room. I stood but didn't head for the door. I just hovered, watching her wrestle with something inside herself. This isn't fair to you, she said at last. You're at the beginning of everything. I'm past mine. I stepped closer, my pulse thundering. Then why do you look at me like you want me to stay? Her breath hitched. Just slightly, but enough. And then, like a spark hitting dry wood, the air changed. She lifted her head, and for the first time, she didn't hide it. The longing, the fear tangled with something deeper. I leaned in. Not touching. Not yet. But close enough that the heat of her skin brushed mine. Close enough that the scent of her tea still lingered in her breath. Don't, she whispered. Her voice wavered. We can't. But she didn't move away. My hand hovered at the edge of the table, knuckles grazing hers by accident, or maybe not. She didn't pull back. The smallest touch, but it felt like everything. Then a knock at the back door shattered it. She jerked away, nearly knocking over her mug. I straightened fast, blood roaring in my ears. Through the glass, I caught sight of a hooded figure, rain dripping off his jacket. He leaned closer to the pane, peering in. It was Ethan. Claire froze. For a split second, she looked at me, panic wide in her eyes. My chest tightened, not just from fear of being caught, but from the way she looked at me like I was already a mistake she'd been punished for. Go, she mouthed silently, pointing toward the hallway that led to the back stairs. The knock came again, louder. I hesitated, every instinct telling me not to leave her alone in that storm of guilt, but her eyes pleaded. So I slipped down the hall, each step a hammer in my chest. From the shadows of the stairwell, I heard the door open. Ethan's voice carried in, casual but edged with suspicion. Hey, Mom. Why are the lights on this late? Her answer came too quickly, too smooth. Couldn't sleep. Tea helps. But her voice shook on the last word. And even hidden in the dark, I could feel the truth. The night had already gone too far to be undone. I didn't breathe until I heard the back door close. Ethan's footsteps faded down the porch steps, swallowed by the rain. Claire lingered there for a moment, forehead pressed to the door, her hand flat against the wood like she could hold it shut forever. When she finally turned, Her eyes found me in the shadows. For a second, neither of us spoke. My heart was still racing from the close call, but hers looked like it had cracked wide open. "Do you see now?" she whispered, her voice raw. "This is what it costs." I stepped closer, careful but determined. "What?" "Having me here." She laughed, bitter, shaking her head. "The risk. The shame. My son walks in, and suddenly you're a secret I can't explain. You're—" She stopped herself, but her hands gave her away, twisting in front of her like she needed something to hold. "I'm not ashamed of this," I said. My voice was steadier than I felt. "Not of you." Her gaze snapped to mine, searching for cracks in my words. But all she found was my chest rising too fast, my palms clenched at my sides. "You should be," she said. "Look at me. I am." The silence that followed was unbearable. Her lips pressed together, trembling just enough to betray her. I wanted to close the space, to end the torment of almost. But she turned sharply, pacing back to the table like movement alone could put distance between us. "I've already been through a marriage that swallowed me whole," she said, voice rising now. "Years of giving myself away until there was nothing left. I'm not doing that again. Not with anyone. Not with you." The words hit hard, but her back was to me, and I saw her shoulders trembling. It wasn't rejection, it was fear. "Claire," I said, stepping closer, my hand brushing the back of the chair she'd just left. "I'm not here to take from you." "Then what do you want?" she demanded, spinning to face me. The question burst out like a dare, her eyes blazing. And that was it, the breaking point. The place where truth became dangerous. My chest tightened, breath catching. I could have lied. I could have softened it. But my mouth moved before my thoughts could intervene. "You." The word landed between us, heavy, irreversible. Her lips parted, but no sound came. She looked at me like I'd ripped away the last barrier she had left. Her hands gripped the edge of the table behind her, knuckles pale. "Say it again," she whispered, as if testing whether I had really dared. "You." My voice broke this time. "All of you." For a moment, the rain outside was the only sound. Then she let go of the table, her arms falling uselessly to her sides. Every part of her screamed contradiction, her body leaning toward me even as her eyes warned me away. We stood inches apart now, breaths colliding. I swore I could feel the heat of her skin. One more second, and it would happen. The kiss. The fall. The thing that couldn't be taken back. Her hand lifted slightly, trembling as it hovered between us, unsure whether to reach for me or push me away. And then, her hand still hovered in the air between us when the sound broke it. A phone buzz. Not hers this time. Mine. I froze. The vibration rattled against the wood of the hallway table where I'd tossed it earlier. Claire's eyes darted to it, then back to me, suspicion flickering across her face. "Answer it," she said, voice low, taut. I crossed the room, throat tight, and picked it up. My chest hollowed when I saw the name. "Ethan." Claire went pale. I swiped to answer, holding the phone too tightly. "Hey." I managed, voice cracking like I'd just woken. "You're at my mom's place, aren't you?" His tone wasn't casual. It was sharp, testing. My blood iced. "What? Why would you?" "I heard your voice," he cut in. "When I stopped by just now. Thought I imagined it. But I didn't, did I?" I glanced at Claire. She was gripping the edge of the counter, eyes wide, silently begging me to say something that would undo this. I lied. "No, you didn't hear me." There was a pause. Too long. Then Ethan laughed, but it wasn't a laugh. It was disbelief breaking into something darker. "You think I don't know my own teammate's voice?" Claire stepped closer, whispering, "Hang up, please." But Ethan's next words pinned me in place. "Don't do this." "Not with her." His voice cracked at the end, and then the line went dead. I lowered the phone slowly, staring at the dark screen. My pulse hammered. Claire looked stricken, her hand pressed to her mouth. "He knows," I whispered. Her eyes closed. She turned away, leaning against the counter like the weight of the truth had just landed on her spine. "God, what have we done?" "He doesn't know," I said, though the words felt weak even as I said them. "He suspects." That's different. But I knew better. Ethan wasn't stupid. And the worst part? He wasn't wrong to feel betrayed. Claire spun back toward me, her voice shaking. "This is exactly what I was afraid of. Do you understand? It's not just us anymore. It's him. It's everyone. People will." She broke off, her breath ragged. "I don't care what people think." "You should." Her tone cracked like glass. Because I'm the mother who should have known better. And you're the boy who should have walked away. That word, boy, cut deep. I almost recoiled, but I caught the flicker in her eyes, the regret already blooming there. Don't call me that, I said quietly. Her lips parted, but she didn't answer. We just stared at each other, everything unsaid pressing between us harder than any confession could. Outside, the rain slowed to a steady drip. The storm had passed, but inside, it felt like one had just begun. Finally, Claire whispered, "This will destroy us." And yet, her hand, trembling, found the back of a chair, dragging it closer to mine as if gravity had already chosen sides. Neither of us moved for a long time. The chair between us felt like a fragile bridge, one step away from collapse. Claire's hand still rested on it, knuckles pale, like she couldn't decide whether to pull it closer or shove it away. Finally, I broke the silence. "He's going to ask you," I said. "Ethan, he's going to look you in the eye and ask, and what are you going to do then?" Her breath hitched. "I'll tell him the truth." It stunned me. The truth. That nothing happened, she said quickly. Too quickly. Her chest rose and fell in shallow bursts. I shook my head, stepping closer. "But something has happened. It's happening right now." Her eyes darted to mine, panic and longing fighting in the same space. "Stop. I can't." She pressed a hand against my chest then, firm but trembling. The first deliberate touch. It burned through my shirt, through my skin. "You don't understand. He's my son." "You're not his," I interrupted. My hand covered hers before I could think better of it. "I'm not his. I'm yours, if you'd let me be." Her lips parted, words caught somewhere between disbelief and desire. "You don't mean that." "I do," I said, louder this time, the room swallowing my voice. "I've thought about this for months. Every time I came here, every time you made tea and tried not to look at me too long, I knew. And you knew too." Her eyes shone, glassy now. She pulled her hand back like it burned, wrapping her arms around herself. "You're too young to know what lasts." I stepped closer anyway. "Then let me be wrong. Let me regret it later. But don't make me regret not trying." The air thickened. Her tears finally slipped, streaking down her cheeks. She didn't bother to wipe. I wanted to touch them, to kiss them away, but I held still. "Do you love me?" I asked, the question out before I could stop it. The silence stretched until I thought I'd shatter from it. And then, quietly, like surrender, "God help me, yes." The words punched the air from my lungs. For a second, all I could do was stare, the world narrowing to the sound of her broken confession. Her hands reached for me and stopped halfway, hovering, torn between gravity and fear. And just as my lips parted to close the distance, she turned away. "I love you," she said again, whispering into the dim kitchen, "but it can't be like this. Not hidden, not shameful. If it's real, it has to survive the light." I stood there, wrecked and raw, realizing she was right. Whatever this was, it couldn't stay in stolen rooms. The clock ticked. The rain stopped. And in that suspended moment, we both knew. We had crossed a line we could never uncross. Whether it would break us or save us, that part was still unwritten. The morning came too soon. Pale sunlight slipped through the blinds, cutting the kitchen into stripes. The night storm had left the air damp, heavy with the smell of wet earth. Claire hadn't slept. I could tell by the way her shoulders slumped over her untouched mug of coffee. I hadn't either. The space between us felt bruised from all the words we had thrown into it, and all the ones we hadn't. She finally spoke, voice soft but steady. "Ethan will come back today." I nodded, my throat tight. "I know." Her eyes lifted to mine, and for the first time, she didn't flinch away. They were raw, swollen from crying, but clear. "If we do this, if we are this, it has to be real. No hiding, no excuses. Do you understand?" I swallowed hard. "And if he hates me for it?" Her fingers toyed with the handle of her cup, then stilled. "Then that's a choice he'll have to make. But I won't live another lie." It hit me then. This wasn't just about us. It was about her refusing to disappear again, like she had in her marriage. Choosing herself, even if it cost her everything else. "I'm scared," I admitted. The words felt like glass in my mouth. She almost smiled, tired but true. "So am I. But maybe that means it matters." The silence after was gentler this time, like the pause before a first step. I reached across the table. My hand covered hers, warm and trembling. She didn't pull away. Instead, she turned her palm upward, fingers threading through mine. It was such a simple thing, but it felt like the bravest choice either of us had made. For a long time, we just sat there, holding hands in the weak morning light, neither of us pretending anymore. Then the sound of a car door slammed outside. Heavy footsteps up the walk. Ethan's voice calling, "Mom?" Claire squeezed my hand once, firmly, before letting go. She stood, smoothing her sweater like armor, and looked at me over her shoulder. "No more secrets," she said. I rose too, my pulse hammering. The door opened. Ethan stepped in, damp from the rain, his eyes moving between us instantly. Suspicion, confusion, something darker flickering in his gaze. The truth hovered on the edge, fragile and unstoppable. I didn't know what would happen next, whether anger, forgiveness, or something in between. All I knew was that Claire and I had chosen to stand in the light together, whatever it cost. Sparkles, and that's where it ends. Not with a kiss, not with certainty, but with a promise that sometimes the bravest love is the one you don't hide. So what do you think? Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?